Hello parents, Miss Johnson here. If you saw the previous video and talked with your students, they were handed a packet to review for the Staar reading test. And that's the reading test, the assessment begins on Thursday for 5th grade in our school. So with that said, I'm going to go over the selection. And parents, I want you to also pay attention to this so you can talk to your kids about it and have some idea of what this test is about. I think oftentimes as adults we think, oh, it's just these are easy tests. No, they've been learning information that is leading up to this test their entire educational career. And we know we had that huge break during 2020. So these tests are no joke. So I say to the students, read the directions. So the directions of the story. Read the selection and choose the best answer to each question. Then fill in the answer on your answer document. Catalina and her father, who she calls Papa, live near the Cerro Telolo Observatory located on the top of two mountains near La Serna, Chile. The observatory is home to a group of very large and powerful telescopes. Because the instruments on the telescopes are so delicate, the telescopes are kept in dome structures for protection. The students will be taking these exams online. So they'll be taking them with their computers. Please have them charged up. They'll take them on the computers. And the key thing is that they've been taught how to do this on the computer, how to test on the computer. There is a place where they can take notes. There's also a place where they have a dictionary where they can look up words. Don't know what a telescope is? Look it up. So there's also a caption here where we can see that this young lady is sitting outside. It looks like she's looking up into the sky. She's chilling there with her little cat. So she just seems like she's just chilling, having a good time. Paragraph 1. Catalina stood on the doorstep of the Cerro Telolo Observatory staff housing, drinking in deep, long fills of clear night air under the blazing southern hemisphere starshine. The Milky Way sprawled across the sky, a swath of pure white lace shadowed by dark blotches. We learned about the Milky Way in 4th grade at our school. Now, you can't drink air, so she's obviously taking deep breaths and she's looking up at the stars. And as we know, there's a big telescope that's there, and the employees that run the telescope, they have a housing area. And so since her dad works there, she's allowed to go there. That would be some notes that I would put down. Paragraph 2. Night was her favorite time. During the day, the Chilean mountaintops swarmed with tourists, shouting and calling to each other as breezes spun dust into the thin mountain air. While the visitors were there, Papa could not allow her to help. 3. But at night, when everything was quiet, Catalina was one of the few who were allowed beyond the roped-off corridors and the, quote, no admittance signs. The night staff all knew her. Okay, so now we can look at this and we know this is a third-person story because Catalina, she's not telling the story. Someone is telling us the story about her. 4. She loved helping to service the grand telescopes, the eyes that peered out into the universe. Even if it was annoying how she was always told not to disturb the astronomers who directed the telescopes through the night, Catalina wanted more than anything to confess her secret dream to these great and revered scientists. Okay, I'm looking at this paragraph, and this is kind of a complicated paragraph, and it's kind of a big one, so I'm going to read it again. She loved helping to service the grand telescopes. That means fix work on them. The eyes that peered out into the universe. So a telescope is like eyes looking up into the sky. Even if it was annoying how she was always told not to disturb the astronomers who directed the telescopes through the night. So she's like, okay, like her dad's like, don't bother them. You can look, but don't be in there in the way. Catalina wanted more than anything to confess her secret dream to these great and revered scientists. So she wanted to tell them something. Paragraph 5. When she said, Papa, I want to be an astronomer someday, he laughed and tugged at one of her long black ponytails. He laughed, so he may not think she can do it. Paragraph 5. But Catalina was curious. The sky did not merely consist of white dots of stars against a black background. The sky she saw every night was knotted with patterns from fuzzy balls of fluff to filaments. So when she's looking up in the sky, she's not just looking up and just thinking, oh, there's some lights up there. She's just looking and thinking that these things are very interesting. These stars are very interesting. The sky is very interesting and it's very intricate. It's got very lots of different things going on up in there, up in the sky. 7. No one believed she would be a scientist one day, but why? She knew she could be a good scientist. She knew it. Oh, so they doubting her. Nobody told her that, but she can kind of see how her dad just kind of laughed and pulled her pony. Oh, sure, you want to be a scientist. I wonder why. Why is he thinking that? Number 8. She danced along the dirt road, barefoot, soundless, against the gravel, a practiced eye scanning the half-dozen domes at the mountaintop summits. Then she stopped suddenly. The 1-meter telescope's dome was slit open, but its angle was unusual. Cautiously she wandered nearer. The telescope was pointed down, almost at the ground, lower than she'd ever seen it. Wait, the telescope is supposed to shoot the sky, so why is it turned down? Something's going on. So she was just kind of dancing along, having a good time, bare feet, she's out there dancing, kind of having fun. She had practiced eye scanning of the half dozen domes. So that means that she would always look up. She knew she was always going to see that telescope pointing up there at the sky. She stopped suddenly because something was wrong. She could see that the telescope was kind of slit open and that it was pointing down. So she's kind of like, what is going on here? So she started walking up like, what? Why is it pointing down to the ground? She knew something was wrong. And look at the picture down there. See the picture down there? Her and that little cat. Cat's curious too. They walking in there. She knows she's not supposed to go in there, but she knows something is wrong and she's curious. So that's another reason she's probably going in there. Number 9. She bit her lip, shifting from foot to foot. The red light over the entrance door indicated that it was forbidden to enter and disturb the scientists at work. So she knows she wasn't supposed to be in there, so she's nervous, biting her lip, kind of stepping from foot to foot. Should I go in there? Should I not? There was a red light over the entrance door that indicates that it was forbidden to enter. See, usually when you see red like a stop sign, it means stop. So if you see a red light going off, you're like, let me see what is going on here. When you see emergency vehicles driving down the street, they have that red flashing light. The light's flashing. It means everybody pay attention and pause. 10. Something was wrong. She was sure of it. 11. So taking a deep breath, she turned the handle and slipped inside. She took a cautious step forward and saw an irregular shape hunched on the floor. What? A shape hunched on the floor? She inhaled sharply. Deep breath in. It was a man. So she's like, that's a man over there. Coming closer, she saw that one of his legs was bent under him at an awkward angle. Why is he sitting like that? Do astronomers just sit like that whenever you see Miss Johnson in the classroom? Do you ever walk in and my leg is just bent backwards and I'm just sitting there on the floor looking at you? 14. Senor, she whispered, are you all right? The man groaned. Phil, he gasped in his accented Spanish, gesturing to the platform above. I think broke leg. Catalina balanced on the balls of her feet, which means she was like, what? Like, duh? Like, she kind of like got at attention. I'll run and get the night operator, she promised, already backing toward the door, starting to go back there to run and go get help. No, his voice was sharp. First, need to fix the telescope. So they didn't want to lose that information. Something was broken and he wanted it fixed. Catalina's eyes lifted to the clock drive lit by a blinking yellow light. She had often helped her father reset this device. Quickly, she walked to the controller and flipped the 2 switches her father used to stop the telescope. Okay, I'm going to read that because there's a lot of information in that. Catalina's eyes lifted to the clock drive lit by a blinking yellow light. So that's some type of device. A clock drive. There's a blinking yellow light. Usually when you see blinking yellow light, kind of like when you're crossing at school, the crossing guard is out there and that blinking yellow light means that the parents need to slow down all the people that are driving because there's kids going there. So that meant that something was wrong, something that she needed to pause and look. So her eyes lifted to the clock drive lit by a blinking yellow light. She had often helped her father reset this device. Quickly, she walked to the controller and flipped the 2 switches her father used to stop the telescope. Okay, you ever reset your computer or you're playing a video game you need to reset, or on your laptops, your computers you're using now, something goes wrong and what do we say? Okay, We can't fix it, turn it off and start it back over again. And so that's what her dad would do when he'd see that blinking light. It's like, okay, let me stop this. So she saw her father reset the device by hitting those two buttons. These are notes that I'm taking that I'm telling you all. Each paragraph, analyze it, see what it's talking about. The man behind her was gasping out directions. He's gasping out directions. Shh, it's all right, she soothed, coming to his side. I'll fix it. No more problems, okay? So he was thinking, okay, let me tell her what she needs to do. And she was like, I got this. You what? He muttered, confused. Already? Then his head lolled to one side. Catalina jumped to her feet, so his head lolled to one side. So he's like, "What?" Twisted his head to the side, like, "What are you talking? You already? Like, how does little girl know how to fix this already?" Her braids thumped her back rhythmically as she ran all the way to the night operator's office. So she was running, her hair was flipping. These are notes. Senora Rojas, and these quote marks means that somebody's talking. Who's talking? It's this little girl, Catalina. Senor Rojas, there's an emergency, she called out as the big man swiveled his beat-up wooden chair to face her. He turned around. Well, huh? The astronomer using the 1 meter had an accident. He fell and broke his leg. You need to get help. Well, 1 meter, using my context clues, that must be the telescope, right? Later that night, Catalina crouched behind one of the junction boxes as the astronomer was carried out on a stretcher. So she's peering over, looking at him being carried out. Quote, wait! Who's talking here? Him. Wait, he called out as he was about to be loaded into the ambulance. Wait, Catalina, how did you know? He asked. What is he asking to know what? Oh, how to hit those buttons and stop that telescope, because she's a little girl and he didn't think she was going to know how to do it, because they was all sitting around and thinking, oh, she's just a cute little girl. She's not going to be able to learn how to be an astronomer. And guess what? She showed him, didn't she? 26. Shh. No, what? She whispered, puzzled. Quote, this is obviously somebody answering back. That something was wrong. She scuffed the dirt with her toe. I saw the barrel pointing down and I knew it wasn't normal. His eyes sharpened. That was observant of you. Shyly she nodded. His gaze remained on her as they lifted the stretcher and began to slide it into an ambulance. A good scientist, he continued, is always observant. That night when she ran out under the stars, she called, I'll discover all your secrets someday. Circling above her, the intricate sky no longer seemed quite so remote. Let's go to the questions. Now, I would suggest here, parents, that students reread, because I read this once and it would really benefit me if I'd go back and read it. This is not time. They have all day to do it. So go back and read the story again so that you can get more meaning out of it. I won't do that here, but we'll go on to the answers. In paragraph 4, why does the author use the figurative phrase, the eyes that peered out into the universe, to describe the telescopes? So we need to go back up to paragraph 4. Let's go ahead and do that on this one question. I'm going to show you guys how to do it on this one, but you'll be able to. Now let's look at paragraph number 4. She loved helping to service the grand telescopes, the eyes that peered out into the universe. Even if it was annoying how she was always told not to disturb the astronomers who directed the telescopes through the night, Catalina wanted more than anything to confess her secret dream to these great and revered scientists. Well, we read over this and we know what? She wants to be a scientist. So let's go to question 1. Again, in paragraph 4, why does the author use the figurative phrase, the eyes that peered out into the universe? Let's look at this logically. A, to suggest that telescopes are used to locate and watch over distant objects in space? Is it B, to indicate that telescopes are used for watching certain people? No. This telescope, they weren't looking at people. The telescope was looking at what? Yeah, the sky, the stars. C, to show that telescopes are delicate objects that need a lot of care and attention. Just say that anywhere in the story. We can assume that, but the story wasn't about that. D, to explain that telescopes should be used only by professional scientists. Well, we use telescopes in school here at science, and we're not professional scientists yet. Nah, we're not going to go with that. The correct answer is A, and this is why. Figurative language is language that uses words that mean something different than their literal interpretation. By describing the telescopes as, quote, the eyes that peered out into the universe, the author emphasizes that the telescope is used to locate and view objects at a great distance in space. The answer is A, to suggest that telescopes are used to locate and watch over distant objects in space. Question number 2. Which sentence from the story best describes Catalina's main conflict? They give us some choices. While the visitors were there, Papa could not allow her to help. That's in paragraph 2. No one believed she would be a scientist one day. Yeah, they could believe that, but did anybody say that? Were they like, you're not going to be able to be a scientist? Nah. H. Catalina balanced on the balls of her feet. Well, yeah, she did when she was like, oh, dope, he needs help. But that wasn't the idea of the story. J. Catalina's eyes lifted to the clock drive lit by a blinking yellow light. Well, I'm going to say that's incorrect because in paragraph 18, Catalina identifies how she is supposed to solve an urgent problem and acts, but this is not her main conflict. The correct answer is G. Catalina loves helping her father with the telescopes and tells him, Papa, I want to be an astronomer someday. However, in paragraph 7, Catalina feels that no one believed she would be a scientist one day. That's her main conflict, that no one believed that she would be a scientist. So the answer there is G. Question number 3. The author includes the imagery in paragraph 1, most likely to highlight Catalina's. The author includes the imagery in paragraph 1, most likely to highlight Catalina's what? Let's go up to paragraph 1. Catalina stood on the doorsteps of the Cerro Tololo Observatory staff housing, drinking in deep lungfuls of clear night air under the blazing southern hemisphere starline. The Milky Way sprawled across the sky, a swath of pure white lace shadowed by dark blotches. So if we are looking at question number 3. Question number 3. The author includes the imagery in paragraph 1 most likely to highlight. Okay, we have A, the loneliness in her mountain home. Catalina is standing alone on top of a mountain, but there is no text evidence that she's feeling lonely. She's appreciative of the nighttime beauty. That's incorrect. B, desire to spend time outside. Although Carolina does seem to enjoy spending time outside, the author includes the imagery in paragraph 1 to emphasize Catalina's appreciation of the nighttime. That's incorrect. C, appreciation of the nighttime. That's the correct answer. I'm going to tell you why by looking at D. Catalina, this is incorrect. Catalina does not have questions about the night sky in paragraph 1. So it is not the purpose of the imagery. This is the reason that C is the correct answer. Imagery is the use of vivid language to represent objects, actions, or ideas. In paragraph 1, Catalina is drinking in deep lungfuls of the clear night air under the blazing southern hemisphere starshine while observing the pure white lace of the Milky Way. The author includes this imagery to highlight Catalina's appreciation of the nighttime. C. Question number 4. The story's third person point of view helps the reader to, is it F, identify the astronomer in the dome, identify what the astronomer in the dome feels, appreciation G, appreciate why the tourists enjoy visiting the observatory. Didn't say nothing about that. H, understand why Catalina wants to spend time at the laboratory. J, relate the relationship between Catalina and her father. Well, let's look at F first. F is incorrect. The story is told from only Catalina's point of view. The reader does not know what the astronomer is feeling. G, incorrect. G is incorrect because the story is told from only Catalina's point of view. The tourist's thoughts or feelings about visiting the observatory are not revealed. We're going to go on down to J. J. Although the author explains that Catalina helps her father at the observatory, the relationship between the two characters is not described. The answer here is H, and it's H because point of view is the perspective from which the events in the story are told. In this story, the author used third person point of view to reveal Catalina's thoughts and feelings. She loved helping to service the grand telescopes. That's in paragraph 4. The point of view helps the reader understand why Catalina wants to spend time at the observatory. See, parents, this exam is not for the faint of heart. I mean, you can see that, they're going to have to work at this, and that means not rushing through it and working to get the correct answer by going back up and rereading the story and going to find evidence, taking the notes, using the dictionary to look up questions. Let's move on to question number 5. How does Catalina's observation of the telescope in paragraph 8 advance the plot of the story? Well, guess what? We can scroll back up to paragraph 8, just like the students will be able to look at paragraph 8. They won't have to scroll, they'll just be able to look. They know how to do it. Paragraph 8, she danced along the dirt road, bare feet soundless against the gravel, and practiced eye scanning the half dozen domes at the mountaintop summit. Then she stopped suddenly. The 1 meter telescope's dome slit slid open, but the angle was unusual. Cautiously, she wandered nearer. The telescope was pointed down, almost at the ground, lower than she had ever seen it. Let's go back down to this question. So when we are looking at our choices, how does Catalina's observation of the telescope in paragraph 8 advance the plot of the story? Here are her selections, and read all of them. It allows Catalina to express her feelings about scientific discovery. It leads Catalina to identify a problem that she will resolve. It hints that Catalina's actions will cause the main conflict. It suggests that Catalina is unfamiliar with the observatory. Okay, number 5, or answer. Let's go to question 5. Let's look at the incorrect answers first. Okay, the incorrect answer, A, it allows Catalina to express her feelings about scientific discovery. Catalina's observation leads her to realize that something is wrong, not to express her feelings about scientific discovery. We're going to move to C. It hints that Catalina's actions will cause the main conflict. In paragraph 8, the author develops the main conflict. However, Catalina's actions resolve the conflict rather than cause it. D. It suggests that Catalina is unfamiliar with the observatory. Catalina's observation of the telescope emphasizes her familiarity with the telescopes at the observatory, not her unfamiliarity. And the answer is B. And here's why. It leads Catalina to identify a problem that she will resolve. Let's read it again. How does Catalina's observation of the telescope in paragraph 8 advance the plot of the story? B is the answer. It leads Catalina to identify a problem that she will resolve. Here is the rationale. In paragraph 8, Catalina notices that a telescope's dome slit is open, but its angle was unusual. Upon closer look, she sees that the telescope was pointed down, almost to the ground. These two cues prompt her to enter the dome, where she discovers problems with both the telescope and the astronomer who was hurt. Problems that she is able to solve. Question number 6. Read these sentences from paragraph 6, and once you read the sentences from paragraph 6, you're going to answer some questions. And here's what some students like to do. They like to go ahead and read the question. I have no problem with that. What is the most likely reason the author includes figurative language in these sentences? F, to show that Catalina needs to use the telescope to see the sky clearly. G, to emphasize that Catalina knows the best time to study the stars. H, to emphasize that Catalina pays careful attention to the details of the stars. J, to show that Catalina does not understand what she sees in the night sky. Let's read the paragraph. The sky did not merely consist of white dots of stars against a black background. The sky she saw every night was knotted with patterns from fuzzy balls of fluff to filaments. Our choices on question 6. I'm going to go to the incorrect ones first, and then we'll go to the correct one. Okay, we're going to let's start off with F. Although the telescope would help Catalina to see the stars clearly, there's no evidence in paragraph 6 that she needs one of the instruments at that moment. Read the paragraph again. G. Catalina is studying the stars at night, but this is really the only time she can switch the stars. She can watch the stars, not just the best time. So let me look at G. To emphasize that Catalina knows the best time to study the stars, nah. J. To show that Catalina does not understand what she sees in the night sky, J is incorrect. The comparison of stars to fuzzy balls of fluff and filaments is related to the appearance of the stars, not Catalina's lack of understanding of the objects she observes in the night sky. The answer is H. To emphasize that Catalina pays careful attention to the details of the stars. Figurative language is language that uses words that mean something different than the literal interpretation. In paragraph 6, the author describes the knotted patterns of the sky in the night sky, from fuzzy balls of fluff to filaments. This description emphasizes that Catalina pays careful attention to details in the night sky because she's making these little things that are in the sky, the stars, and what she's seeing, clouds. They're fuzzy balls of fluff. She made them into like cotton balls. So you look up in the sky, sometimes it looks like there's just a cotton ball stretched out whenever it may be a cloud. So she's using figurative or imagining what something she is imagining it to be something than what it literally is. Question number 7. Why is Catalina's experience with the injured scientist important to the plot? A. The experience helps explain why Catalina is only allowed to help her father at certain times. B. The experience shows that Catalina thinks she knows more about telescopes than the scientist. C. The experience tells details about how Catalina's father taught her about telescopes. D. The experience reveals a trait of Catalina's that will help her become a successful scientist. Boy, these are some good choices here. We're going to have to really work this out. Why is Catalina's experience with the injured scientist important to the plot? Well, let's look at first answer. Let's look at A. The experience helps me explain why Catalina is only allowed to help her father at certain times. So here's the rationale, the reason that this is wrong. The experience takes place at night, but it does not help explain why Catalina is only allowed to help her father at certain times. B. The experience shows that Catalina thinks she knows more about telescopes than the scientist. That just is pretty obvious. She wasn't a know-it-all. She was wanting to get to talk to the scientist, but she wasn't allowed. B. Catalina helps the injured scientist, but there's no evidence that she thinks she knows more than the other scientist or him. C. The experience tells details about how Catalina's father taught her about telescopes. C is incorrect. The experience reveals Catalina's knowledge of the telescopes, but there are no specific details related to what her father taught her about the instrument. So the answer is D. The experience reveals a trait of Catalina's that will help her become a successful scientist. Catalina discovers the injured scientist because she observes a problem with one of the telescopes. The scientist calls Catalina observant, a trait that will help her to become a successful scientist. This is important to the plot because Catalina realizes she has the ability to become a scientist. This rationalization helps Catalina resolve her conflict. So the answer there is D. And we'll move on to the second story.